Man, I gotta come out. And I was listening to Jim Cornette, and Jim was going on about. They asked him a question about Mr. T, about his WrestleManias, 1 and 2. He was in both of them back in the 85, 86. And somebody asked him a question about Mr. T and why Piper had so much animosity toward Mr. T. And had Jim kept it to that, I probably would have been okay because I can understand wrestlers, um, you know, being protective and not really agreeing to do the job for, celebrities. I've wondered all these years how come every time you turn around, celebrities seem like they get, this big deal and they get paid all this money and they come in and do one of these little one or two shot appearances and a match or two and then they're gone. And it's just in my mind it's a waste of money. And like I said, you don't get much out of it. And like I said, the whole thing with the celebrity wing in the Hall of Fame for the WWE, largely it's a big joke. I mean, everybody in it's only had a handful of things, and like I said, there's no gray area. To me, I don't care who goes in that part of the Hall of Fame, because largely it's just a big joke. They're just trying to get a few more eyeballs on their product. It don't mean anything. It's not a legit Hall of Fame. But one thing I will say about Mr. T, where Jim Cornette, for all the times that he's normally right, I have to disagree with him. This guy, I will at least say this: out of all the celebrities, and yeah, they did have a bad match at WrestleMania 2, that boxing match that was sort of stupid. But in a sense, name another celebrity who has those first two WrestleManias. I don't think there's been not one celebrity that's come back two times in a row and actually wrestled both times, boxed, wrestled, whatever. They've not physically been active in the ring twice in a row at two WrestleManias. And when you think about it, this probably wasn't this probably wasn't planned to happen. That especially that WrestleMania 2, that was probably a bonus because I dare say that that's rare. And I mean, we've had Bob Euchre at 3 and 4, but that was just as a ring announcer and as or whatever he was doing. But you've never seen two times in a physicality standpoint, where they're having an actual match or what they call an actual match with celebrities. But I disagree with Jim Cornette. This guy, what I know about Mr. T, and I know he was a big part of the A Team and all that. He did some acting. I know he obviously is a big Christian. He's a big guy for religious stuff, and he talked about his. I remember when he was at that Hall of Fame. My God, what year was it? It's like 2014 or 2015, whatever year it was. He got inducted. Oh my God, I thought he was never going to get him out of there. He was going on about his mom, and I remember, and how much he loved her. It was a good speech, but my gosh, I thought he was going to go overkill. And so Kane came out and was like, "Hey, time to wrap it up." But and you say, "Well, Derek, can't let Undertaker this year go for an hour." Yeah, well, as Undertaker though, it's they can't let everybody go an hour. When Ric Flair went a little over an hour in his speech, I don't think they ever intended on that being the case. They probably knew he could go an hour, but they didn't think he would. I guess they didn't think to tell him, hey, you need to. Because when he came back, and got in the Hall of Fame the second time in 2012, his speech was much shorter. So they obviously told him, said, "Hey, you can't be out here like that." And like I said, they'll make a special occasion for the Undertaker because of how big he was. They'll probably do that for The Rock. Hell, if John Cena wants to stand up there for a half hour, they'll probably let him do that because he's the main event. But when I look back at some of the old Hall of Fame speeches, they tend to only go 5 minutes less. Back in '94 to '96 when they had the WWF Hall of Fame, now WWE Hall of Fame. Pat Patterson's the longest one that was up there. Pat went about 11 minutes, I believe it was, or something like that. So that was a long speech, and I guess Pat, he could talk. I mean, I guess I watched it the other day. I couldn't believe it, but in a way I can because I wasn't a big Pat Patterson fan, but he was the longest speech I've ever heard yet. There's a lot of them back in the day that I've got on my playlist. But it's just it depends on the person and who it is, and especially if they're main event, they're not going to wrap them up early. I know Stone Cold's not really a big talker in front of people, and when he's doing his Hall of Fame speech, he just wrapped it up quick. Unless it's something they just want to wrap it up quick, there really ain't no time limit on the main eventers. But they try to get everybody else out of the way because you got inductees and inductors and all that stuff. And you got all that stuff you got to consider. And you got a certain time you'd like to get everybody out. So, so the fact that Taker went an hour when you had, what you had this year, that was something. But yeah, back to Mr. T. I know Jim Cornette. He's an old time, manager. He grew up, in the I think it's like the 50s, and when he was a kid, somewhere through there, and he grew up on wrestling, especially in the 60s, 70s, and watched it growing up. I'm not saying Mr. T's the toughest guy, but I'm saying he's one of the few celebrities they have actually had more interaction with. Now, they haven't done this in recent years, but as far as back to back, two things in a row, two physical matches. I mean, you can say what you will about the boxing match, but I give him credit on, the 1985 boxing match. I mean, not boxing. Oh, the tag match with him and Hulk versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. I give him credit. That takes a lot of time to and in the moves he pulled off for the first celebrity to ever get in there and participate physically. You got to think. That was pretty good. He, from what I remember, he body slammed somebody in there at one point. Then he got a couple of, he got a fireman's carry. He threw one of them down. I mean, it's all choreographed, but they set it up. But he did his part, and he had to get physical in there, and he did his part, and he did all the promotional stuff, which is more than I can say for most of these celebrities. They just come in and make a big old hoot like Johnny Knoxville, that stupid idiot. It's like the worst fucking celebrity match I think I've ever seen in my life. Just some jackass stunt. It wasn't even a match. Just some fucking stunt show. But again, it's Vince McMahon for you. But no, I gotta give Mr. T his props. He also made a song. He had one hit. It's a song about his mom, I forget what it's called, but and like I said, back in the day, celebrities have more respect for wrestling. I mean, Jim did say, Mr. T's not no gimmick. I mean, the name Mr. T is a gimmick, but this guy's not a joke. This guy's not, 120 pounds or 30 pounds of just, skin and bones. He had a look to him, and he didn't get over just by his look. He wouldn't be a bouncer if he wasn't somewhat tough. And nobody can't just be a bouncer. I mean, when you think about being a bar bouncer or security guard, you got to be trained. You got to know what you're doing. You don't just go out there and just sign up for shit like that, and not be equipped and know how to handle situations. So I'm not a big fan of what Cornette said about you know uh, Mr. T, because Mr. T, I guarantee you he could do more than you think. And I've seen Mr. T. He wasn't known to be, as Jim Cornette said, he wasn't a big boxer. Like, he played one on TV, but he definitely was a bouncer. And he may have had some wrestling in high school or somewhere, but that probably, I think I heard him say that there was you know, I haven't looked up his Wikipedia, but that was very. Uh, but I wouldn't expect Jim Cornette to give celebrities much love because, but Mr. T deserves it. I'll go one step further, and in WrestleMania 2, when these football players got in there and got physical at WrestleMania 2, and the football players versus the uh, WWE, WWF wrestlers at the time, back in '86, um, they were on the same card as, they had three different cards. There was that. So you have to give it up. I mean, these guys went in there and they trained, and they didn't. I mean, Mr. T ain't just some skinny little dude. Yeah, I mean, he's not a big tall guy, but he's not somebody that's just you know. Uh, so anybody and like I said, I don't know about a lot about Mr. T, but I know enough. And what I saw, and stuff, and like I said, uh, he was in was it Rocky 3? I think it's the same one Hogan was in. So, or one of the other ones, I don't remember. Mr. T was in one of them, or two, at least one or two of those Rocky movies. You just can't just. I mean, yeah, part of it is acting, but you actually have to physically do it and do it, and do it right. They take a licking, and they don't just play around and goof around. A lot of, there's a lot of things that goes into this. The same thing as wrestling was a traveling circus. I'm glad that Mr. T didn't talk bad about the wrestling, but he wasn't a gimmick. His character on TV was the gimmick, but the guy himself is a literal human being who has a big heart and is nice and is kind. And it's just from my knowledge, a lot of the time you never hear anything bad about Mr. T. And so I have to take up for him here, and I have to say, Jim Cornette, you're not right on this one. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Just like Chuck Norris, you're downplaying his involvement in the Survivor Series. Well, Chuck Norris could literally kick some ass, and Chuck Norris is trained in all types of karate and all that mixed martial arts or whatever you call it stuff. And he knows all that stuff. I mean, Jeff Jarrett, uh, from my knowledge, and like I said, I know it had to be a worked kick because Chuck Norris knew not to. And you could see Chuck Norris. The reason Chuck kicked him the way he did is because he didn't want to kick the guy in the head. He kicked the guy, and I remember this. He kicked the guy. He kicked Jeff Jarrett in the chest, which is not normally what Chuck Norris would do. You know, and he kind of did like a little roundhouse version of the kick, but he, like I said, he didn't put nothing too much behind it, and obviously because it was not supposed to be real. But anyway, I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna help my wife with some groceries. I'm just gonna give my I was just giving my thoughts on Mr. T. I was done anyway. All right, I'll be back later. Jim.